The Intro.2 standard covers the body cavities as well as the specific body systems that you'll have to know in a general sense. This is an overview video that we will go more in depth on throughout the entire academic year as we study body system by body system. This is just going to be more of a general overview. So here's that title page again. For Intro 2, it says I can identify the levels of organization within the body, including major body cavities, organ systems, and organs, describing the general function of each. This covers section 1.6 in your textbook. Okay, so you should already have this big title down. I would go right into Intro to Cavities and Body Systems. There will be some images that I ask that you write into your notes, and this is one of them. So if you need to pause for a minute and sketch what you see here, especially noting the colors. It's okay if you don't keep the color scheme, it doesn't need to be teal and purple, but I would like you to draw a human figure and label the axial region and the appendicular region. So the axial region, as you can see here, refers to head, neck, and trunk. So it doesn't really include your hips, it does not include your shoulders, it is just those very central portions. And the appendicular portion is your limbs, your legs, your arms, upper and lower limbs. Okay, major cavities of the axial portion. We'll start there. So in our head, of course, we have a cavity that houses our brain. That would be our cranial cavity. I would draw this picture as well, underneath where you drew your appendicular axial one. Unless there's room inside, you're welcome to combine them, though he is standing on a different plane than the last picture. So cranial cavity houses your brain, and the vertebral canal, sometimes known as the spinal cavity, contains the spinal cord. Inside of our thoracic cavity, we have, of course, our lungs and other thoracic viscera, which means like organs or body parts. And we'll get more specific in a minute. And we also have this big cavity down here in the inferior portion of your abdominal pelvic cavity, which contains both abdominal and pelvic viscera. You'll notice this cavity is split, and we'll get to that on the next slide. Okay, dividers. So separating the thoracic cavity and the abdominal pelvic cavity is the diaphragm. A lot of students like to color code their notes, and so maybe they'll draw the diaphragm in a specific color in their notes, and then they'll write the vocab word in that same color. That is totally up to you, but that makes sense to me. So the diaphragm sits right here, and it's a muscle. It's a muscle that is pretty flat and not terribly strong, but it's the thing that keeps us breathing. It's the thing that allows us to sing and talk and do a lot of our communication patterns. There's also a vertical separator called the mediastinum. It's between your two lungs, and it contains the heart, your esophagus, your windpipe, and a couple of glands. So right here in between your two lungs, you have the mediastinum. We said your abdominal pelvic cavity contains two portions. So the much larger superior abdominal cavity up here in light teal has your stomach, your liver, your spleen, your kidneys, small intestine, and most of your large intestine. So a lot of the really critical important stuff is in your abdominal cavity. And then kind of arbitrarily separated, there's not a huge muscle like there was up here with the diaphragm or a sac like the mediastinum. The pelvic cavity just has the lower end of your large intestine, your urinary bladder, and the internal portion of your reproductive organs. So your ovaries if you're a female, or your prostate gland, for example, if you are a male. The other half of the Intro.2 standard, besides cavities, is body systems, and I've tried to organize them in a way where we can group them in order to memorize them more efficiently. So the first three organ systems I'm calling those that structure. So these are things that keep your body rigid, keep it strong, keep everything inside, or keep everything protected. So these are very protective, very uh, crucial, critical organs. So integumentary system is the first one we're going to cover in this class, and the integument is a really fancy way of saying skin. But your integumentary system protects all the stuff inside of you. It's waterproof, mostly because of the oils that can sometimes accumulate and cause acne, but ultimately do a good job at protecting you. Your skin regulates your body temperature. You sweat, you get goosebumps. You sense the world with your skin, right? It's on the outside. It feels pressure and temperature and touch, and it also produces vitamin D. That's why we need some sun exposure to activate that precursor to that vitamin that exists in our skin. We have the skeletal system, serves as the framework of our entire body. It protects things like your skull protects your brain. Sometimes there's attachment sites for muscles. That's why they have big bulbous ends, so we can fit a muscle in between. They store a lot of your salts in case you need them later. You can break down your bones a little bit and get some of that inorganic salt. Your bones are very much alive. We think of them as tough, dead tissue, but they produce your blood cells, red, white, all of them. And then, of course, they support you and allow you to move. Otherwise, you'd be just a pile of putty. And then the last system that structures is your muscular system, primarily for movement, secondarily for maintenance of body heat or posture, but your muscles allow you to do everything, to speak, to breathe, your heart to pump, all of that, of course, being a part of your muscular system. Okay, the next two systems are, I'm calling them systems that coordinate. So your nervous system is here on the left, and it is for integrating and coordinating function through electrical nerve impulses. So both of these systems tell your body what to do. The nervous uses your brain and electrical signals to tell your body what to do. The endocrine, on the other hand, is far less familiar. It still is controlled by your brain, but instead of electrical impulses, it uses tiny chemical messengers called hormones to tell your body what to do. So both are commanding, both are informative systems. It's just how they do it that differs. Is it electrical or is it hormonal? Next, we have those body systems that transport. The more familiar one, of course, is the cardiovascular system. It includes the heart, your arteries, your veins, and the important thing here is transportation. We're moving gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen. We're moving nutrients, blood cells, and waste. All of those things are shuttling around in these really expansive blood vessels. This doesn't even begin to show you how many you have. Less familiar maybe is the lymphatic system. Often running pretty close in parallel to your circulatory cardiovascular system, you have a separate liquid that runs through its own channels called lymph. And that lymph usually holds white blood cells and other body defense cells. So it's a more watery fluid, it is not blood, and typically we don't really cover this system too much because it is incredibly complex, as the human immune response is incredibly complex. But it does include a couple of glands like your spleen and all of these lymph pathways. We have those systems that metabolize, so things that deal with energy. The digestive system, of course, receives the food, breaks it down, and excretes the waste. It goes all the way from your mouth to your anus and has all these organs in between. The respiratory system, whose sole purpose is to exchange gases, to take in that oxygen and breathe out that carbon dioxide. One task, but absolutely crucial. We need oxygen every minute of every day. So, important system, has to run on autopilot. And then the urinary system removes our waste, mostly from our blood, regulates our water, regulates our blood pressure. So it's a way of cleaning our blood, which happens here in the kidneys, and sending out urine so that we don't have a buildup of waste. And then, of course, the only system that's left is that which reproduces. So the male and female body systems produce and transport sex cells. So it's not just enough to make sperm cells, we also have to deliver them at the right time to the right place. And for the female reproductive system, we also have fetal development and childbirth, two things that we'll cover towards the end of this course. In your textbook, Table 1.4 has a more specific list of all the major organs that are included in each body system and perhaps a little bit longer definition of what the major functions are if you're curious. But otherwise, that concludes Intro.2, Body Cavities and Body Systems.